when I was locked there, I was not thinking from that perspective, but she said, we were all in prison with you. You were on the inside, we were on the outside, but we were all imprisoned by the system. 50 days for me. And when I will watch a movie or I will see something, it comes back. 500 days? I can't imagine.
Sidney Fizard for Rebel News. In Canada, it has become commonplace for repeat offenders, rapists, murderers, and terrorists to be released on bail. But this same luxury has not been granted to 4 men charged with conspiracy during the Freedom Convoy movement. During this movement, individuals such as Tamara Leach and Pastor Artur Pawlowski were held in pretrial custody for months on end. Many saw this as political imprisonment, especially considering they were denied bail on charges related to their proximity and advocacy towards these national peaceful demonstrations against vaccine mandates and COVID restrictions. Currently in Alberta, Canada, 4 men also charged during the time have each now spent 534 days in pretrial custody. Together, that's 2,136 days held by the state while yet to be found guilty of a crime. Anthony Oleanic, Chris Carbert, Chris Lysak, and Jerry Morin were charged with mischief over $5,000, possession of a weapon for dangerous purpose, and conspiracy to murder RCMP. This occurred after RCMP filed search warrants and seized multiple firearms near the Coutts blockade. Denied bail for reasons hidden by a publication ban and facing additional delays, their jury trial is expected to take place next year in 2024, over 2 years after their arrests. Regardless of whether the 4 accused are guilty or innocent, many wonder if this is an example of the state failing to provide timely access to justice, especially considering the Crown's continual failure to provide timely and complete disclosure. To provide perspective on what it's like to be detained like this, we interviewed Pastor Artur Pawlowski, who last year himself spent 51 days in pretrial custody. He explains the burden this was to him and his family, and what it's like to be held by the state under such conditions. In May this year, Pawlowski was found guilty on 1 count of mischief and a count of breaching a release order. Pawlowski is still fighting in the courts, however, and he is set to be back in the Lethbridge Courthouse August 9th, 2023. To see his full story, you can go to saveartur.com.
But I decided to come here because I believe that the eyes of the world are fixed on this place, right here. Amen. Yes, this little pitiful piece of land. And the eyes of the world are fixed right here on you guys. You are the heroes of the solidarity movement. Don't you dare breaking the line.
What are you doing to the clergymen in this country? Who are you aiding? Who are you aiding, man? You criminal!
I'm in Spy Hill, waiting for the bail hearing, and I have been charged with 3 criminal charges. One with mischief, another one is interfering with the critical infrastructure, and the third one is not keeping the peace, breaking the bail condition from September arrest when I came from United States of America. I'm in this trouble because of my speech to them to hold the lines, and because I made that speech telling people to keep hope and not to give up their rights for freedom, I'm in this horrible situation right now. So that's why, and they wanted to know who is in control over there, who is in charge, and who makes the decisions, and what would it take for the protest to end. And what I said is very simple. I said to them that what we want, what all of us, what we want is to be treated as humans.
We're sitting outside right now. We're sitting in your front yard. There's birds, there's lots of flowers. It's very beautiful. It's very lovely. You didn't get that for 51 days. You got a concrete wall. Does it mean something different to you to be able to sit out here now than it did before?
Of course, but remember, I can't leave. If I would step outside on a sidewalk, I could be arrested. I'm on a house arrest from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I work with the homeless people. I feed them, and I'm aware of corruption within the system. But now I think for the first time in a very tangible, physical way, I was touched by that corruption. And I remember talking to my wife and my son and my brother David, and I said, we cannot forget this. Sheriffs were waiting for me. I was shackled like an animal. I don't know if you have seen in the movies the Penguin March. I was one of the inmates in the Penguin March, and I was taken to Edmonton and locked in a max spot in a solitary confinement for the most dangerous terrorists in the land. And I was the only inmate in the entire unit for hundreds of people, just by myself. Freezing conditions, shivering. When I said to the guard, it's so cold here, give me an extra blanket at least, or turn off the air conditioning, it's minus 20 outside. He laughed at me and he said, at least you have fresh air. Just concrete and nothing else, nothing to do. No one was doing anything with us. We couldn't even play games. It was a horror movie. The first thing that comes to your mind that this is surreal, that this is crazy. So you're sitting over there and you're thinking to yourself, well, for sure, tomorrow I will be released. Then the next day, and then a week comes and you start counting the days, and then the harshness of them doing extra things to you. Isolation, solitary confinement, metal cages. And then you look at this and you say to yourself, this is unacceptable by any standards. And it definitely not acceptable in a free and democratic society. And then the weeks turn into months now. And you start to ask yourself this question, does anyone even care? I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. Does anyone care? I marched with the thousands. I stood for their children, for their rights, for their businesses, for their bodily autonomy. And now I'm here in hell, being treated like a terrorist. Does anyone care? And that's why the lifeline, the family, the church, friends, and the media like you, I would ask my wife, is Rebel doing any news? Are they telling the people what is happening to me? Because my son was recording it. My wife was recording my statements. Are they covering? Are they telling? And when she said yes, they're telling people what's happening, I'm telling you, that gave me the strength for the next day. And the next day would come and hell was unleashed. But hope was always there. I'm doing this not just for myself, but for others. And there are people that care what is happening to me. The worst thing that can happen to a person under the boot of a tyrant is thinking that no one cares. That no one cares what happens to me. No one cares what is going to happen to me and my family, my loved ones. So care. Support. Be there. Come. I looked at the boys today and they looked at the crowd of people. And their hearts were leaping with joy that there's someone there that cares. And the room was filled with people that care. So care. Be a real Canadian. People under such a heavy craziness, under boots of injustice, cannot survive this alone. You cannot survive financially, spiritually, psychologically. You just can't. You will break. So this lifeline is needed. I would ask my wife, how is the church doing? How are the finances? Are you paying? Are you making payments? Are we doing okay? Are we going to survive this? Or they will not only finish me physically, break my body, and they try to break my spirit as well. But they're going to do everything in their power to break us financially, because it looks like the process is the punishment. It looks like when they lock you up, they want you to suffer. But I think what's more important to understand for the people, they want the families to suffer. So the families can put pressure on you so you take the deal. You gotta remember, when I was there, Twice I was offered a way to get out of my trouble. If I would bow, that's what the whole thing is all about. Sign the paper and you're free. Just say you're guilty. Just say you are a horrible monster. Am I? Am I? What did I do? I delivered a church sermon to hurting Canadians in the middle of a timeline, historical timeline that they have never seen before. And what did I say? That was so horrible. Hold the line. Stand for God and state-given rights and do it peacefully. Don't hurt anyone in the process. Non-compliance, civil rights style, solidarity way. Just refuse to cooperate and it will break their system.
You see, for the past 2 weeks, they have been giving you ultimatums. They were puffing their chest, coming with their guns and telling you, you're all are criminals, terrorists, racists, xenophobes and homophobes and whatever they could take. They were coming here and they were telling you what to do. Now you tell them what to do. You go to them and you say this, Mr. Kenny, we're giving you 48 hours until Saturday noon to get rid of every restriction in our beloved province because we are free Canadians.
Right.
If you don't do that, you be very careful because you have never seen an angry Albertan yet. And I'm again not talking about violence, I'm not talking about swords and guns and all that stuff. You've got the most powerful wings ever. Who can move 1,000 trucks? Who can move 10,000 truckers?
We can.
With 100,000 supporters. I am calling right now every Albertan not to go to Edmonton, but to come here.
Thank you.
Come here.
What they did to me and what they are doing to those 4 boys, I was heartbroken today. And I'm telling you, I heard the noise of the shackles and all the memories came back. There was no need for shackles. There was no need to treat us as animals, chained like some kind of a 18th century, 19th century slaves in the United States. There was no need for that. There's no need for that. But they're doing it for a purpose because they want to break you. And if you will refuse to be broken, they want to break your family. And if your family is strong, they will try to break you financially. That's the whole process. Put it in the words of my wife. I remember when I was released, she said to me, words that when I was locked there, I was not thinking from that perspective, but she said, we were all in prison with you. You were on the inside, we were on the outside, but we were all imprisoned by the system. And I started to think about it, and that was right. Everything was on hold. I mean, the whole affair was on hold because the father of the family was locked in prison like a common criminal, and everyone was suffering. My children, everything had to be adjusted by the family fighting for the life of their father and the husband. And she was right. When one parent is locked, everyone is locked. Everyone is imprisoned. And I think that's what they want. I think it's done by design. This idea of going to prison, the idea that I was always cherishing innocent until proven guilty, and the idea that you can go to prison and be charged and not released on bail while pedophiles, murderers, bank robbers, you name it, real drug dealers, gangsters are being released the next day, and you're sitting over there because you did what? You gave a sermon? It was unbelievable. And you got to remember, I watched that unfolding when I was growing up under Solidarity. The power of Solidarity was not guns. The power of Solidarity was not money. The power of Solidarity was family and faith. When people came together and said, we're doing this for our kids, and we are doing this with God. That's what scares them. Believe me, they know history. It worked before, and they are afraid that it's going to work again. That's why a man like me has become an enemy of the state.
How was your reaction to being denied bail? What was your takeaway from that?
Well, first of all, I was shocked by what I was hearing from the Crown Prosecutor. Lies after lies, manipulation after manipulation, just like I hear with the 4 boys in Lethbridge. They are liars. Stephen Johnston is a pathological liar. And you see, I'm talking to you on camera, and I'm not afraid to say it. If they want to take me to court and sue me, fine, I'll gladly take it. Because we caught this man lying and manipulating the court system. And this is a Crown Prosecutor that should, have a higher standard, but they have no standards. They have no problem to manipulate and lie and to manufacture stuff if that suits their political narrative. So when I was listening to my bail hearing, my first bail hearing, I was like, my God, I'm doomed. Those people do not even follow their own laws. And they call me a criminal, a lawbreaker. I remember I said, when I was listening to these lies of that Crown Prosecutor, I said, this is like a show trial. I said that to the judge. Oh my God. It was over. It was done. I was done. They pounded on me like mud hyenas. And Stephen Johnston used that against me. So here is an accused sitting powerless in a jumpsuit, like some kind of a villain. Hearing this man lying about me, manufacturing stuff, making stuff up, and I was not allowed to say a word. And it's my life they're talking about, my future.
If you had spent 510 days in pretrial custody, what would that look like for you? How would you wrap your head around that?
I would say to you, there is no way you can come out unchanged after that experience. Unless God is there with you and faith keeps you going every day, I'm telling you, you cannot come out of this experience unchanged. And I want to say you're damaged, but you're wounded for the rest of your life. Wounded for the rest of your life. I think those boys, when they will come out, unless God heals them. I mean, I've seen miracles and God can change your entire experience. Look, I grew up behind the Iron Curtain and I'm not damaged because I have been healed from that. I have no hatred towards the Russians or communists. I pity my enemies to this day because they don't know what they have done. Hell is a real thing. They're going to pay for what they have done. But sitting there under such a cruel conditions in Remand Center, because we're talking about the worst place you can be locked. This is not the federal prison. This is not the provincial prison. This is hell. Remand is hell. And the abuse of power in Remand is unbelievable. Unbelievable. So being there for such a long time, not being able to see your family and to have a meaningful contact with your children and not being able to work and contribute to the well-being of you and your family and the community, it damages you to a point that I believe that for the rest of their lives, unless God heals them, they will be triggered by the experience. They will not be able to forget that. 50 days for me. And when I will watch a movie or I will see something, it comes back. 500 days? I can't imagine.
There's some people that are clearly very angry with us.
Well, there's people that are upset. Understandably, 2 years of being locked down. I guess they're lost.
Nobody's, everybody's calm here. And if you're not, please leave.
You're surrounded by Canadians and we're all your friends too.
This is love rate.
Don't forget to find out more about Pastor Artur Pawlowski's story and the current legal battles he's facing. Go to saveartur.com. As for the 4 men charged with conspiracy, they have now collectively spent 2,136 days held by the state, and every day that goes by is 4 days they spend in conditions very similar to the gruesome reality Pastor Artur Pawlowski details of his time in pretrial custody last year. For Rebel News, Sydney Vizard. Don't forget, if you want to help our independent journalism, you can go to rebelinvestigates.com. We don't take big bailout money from the government. We rely solely on our donors to produce the content you see on a daily basis. To help us do that, go to rebelinvestigates.com.